In my honest review of the Freestyle Libre 3, I am going to be sharing some things that the company probably doesn't want me to say, but I'm not affiliated with them, so I can say whatever I want. Now, I'm going to share the pros and cons. There are both, and as with all things, if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Vandevecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist living with type 1 diabetes, and I'm looking at my reflection right now. I wore this shirt to remind me to tell you that the sensor failed right before I had this half Ironman race. So let's get into it. Now this is going to be as much as I can an unbiased review, but I did have a half Ironman race, and that was last week. So right in the middle of the test, I actually wanted to test the Freestyle Libre 3 in an ultra endurance race. So the half Ironman, you swim 1.2 miles, then you bike 56 miles, and then you run a half marathon, or 13.1 miles. I'm currently training for a full Ironman, which is double all of that. So 2.4 mile swim into a 112 mile bike ride into a full marathon, or 26.2 miles, which is psycho, I know. I've never done one before. I got it in like just over a month. I'll be doing that. But today, to review the Freestyle Libre 3, I do have some good things as well. It wasn't just that it failed, it performed exceptionally well up until that point. So what was interesting is, as you guys might have seen in the insertion video that I did, the insertion went very smoothly. A little bit of a hiccup at first. It touched on some muscle, made it a little bit painful, and then it went away. It found its groove in my arm. Now what's kind of ironic is that I had the G6 on that I was going to be comparing it to compare G6 versus the Dexcom, by the way. Dexcom G6 versus the Freestyle Libre 3, but as you can tell, ironically now, it's the Dexcom G7. And so if you've been following my channel for a while, you know I test out everything, not just diabetes tech, but also diabetes management styles, different types of diets and how those impact our blood sugars, different types of exercise, which is part of the reason I do these Ironman things, is to push the limits and see what else is out there. I do all of this while maintaining above a 90% time in range average blood glucose. So I stay above 90% time in range all the time, and I have been doing that consistently for over 5 years now, while raising a family, training for Ironman events, running a business, eating good food, travel, you name it. Now, the way that I do that is what I call blood sugar formulas. And you've probably heard of an insulin to carb ratio. That's a blood sugar formula, a very basic one, of course, but that's the idea behind it. We teach that with my private clients. So we help them to set up ideas on how to predict where blood sugars are going to go and how to have precision control. Now, what's important for precision control is devices that produce precision, like the CGMs that we wear, right? So if the CGMs don't work perfectly, then it's not as helpful for us using blood sugar formulas. So, and you can use blood glucometers as well. But the idea behind blood sugar formulas is that everything behind diabetes and blood sugars has a reason, and it can be linked to simple math. 1 + 1 = 2, right? Insulin plus carbs equals stable blood sugars. And give you an oversimplified version of that. So when I was testing out the Freestyle Libre 3, I tested it with exercise, with different types of foods. I tested it overnights, in the shower, all these things to see what would happen. Now, one of the interesting distinctions that I'll add is with hot showers specifically. If you don't know this yet, you might consider picking up my new book on these topics, because these are things, the nuances that you might not have learned in the doctor's office. Hot showers can impact blood sugars. Now, with the Dexcom devices, I've noticed consistently that in a hot shower, my blood sugars will show that they're spiking from the hot water, and then after I get out of the shower, they will plummet if I have insulin on board. See, the hot shower acts as a vasodilator, opens up our blood vessels. I'm getting off track. I'm so sorry. I like geeking out on blood sugar stuff to help you to control it better. I'll try to limit it. But basically, if we have insulin on board and you take a hot shower, there's a good chance you're going to see a drop. However, I noticed that while Dexcom shows a spike initially, a false spike, the Freestyle Libre did not. The Freestyle Libre stayed accurate to my true readings. It would stay stable, 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 then drop. whereas Dexcom would be stable spike drop. So very interesting to see it respond differently to these variables. Now, what's interesting is that in my my experimentation, the Freestyle Libre was most consistently spot on. The readings matched my glucometer, as did my readings on the Dexcom G6. So both CGMs worked fantastic. They were in agreement on my blood sugars, but there was a point where there was a disagreement. I'll get to that in a second. I want to mention and kind of close the loop that I mentioned earlier. Blood sugar formulas. If you're unfamiliar with those, we actually have a free training where you can learn about blood sugar formulas, how they might benefit your lifestyle, and give you more flexibility and freedom to choose the types of foods you want to eat and still have stable blood sugars, the types of activities you want to do, family events, and still have stable blood sugars, the type of life you want to live and still have stable blood sugars. You guessed it. So you can go to a website. It's diabetesinaction.com. It's totally free. Just enter your email. We send it to you. But that's what life should look like with type 1 diabetes, is living with diabetes in action, not in restriction, which so many of us are recommended to do, right? So diabetesinaction.com. I'll put it in the description as well. Just tap on that, head over there after this video. Now, with the Freestyle Libre 3, I wrote down some pros and cons. Now, the first one, I believe, is just bad luck. I had one sensor, and it expired like 2 days after I put it on, so I got it in just in the nick of time. And then 5 days into the sensor, that's supposed to last 14 days, it crapped out on me. It stopped working. The readings were getting kind of spotty. It would go 5 minutes with signal loss, then it would go 10 minutes, then eventually there was a 30-minute gap where there was signal loss, and then finally it just didn't come back. And I was so sad because it was the night before we left for this half Ironman race that I was doing. It was a big 10-hour road trip to get to the race, but I had to take it off ultimately and could not continue the experiment with a broken sensor. So I took it off. The reason I'm wearing two sensors now, because you didn't ask, is I wore the G6 for the race, and in the middle of the race I had my G6 fail. Like, I think CGMs just hate me. I think is ultimately what happened. In the middle of a 56-mile bike ride, just gave a big dose of insulin, and my blood sugars showed that they were crashing, and then the CGM quit on me. I was like, oh my goodness, this is stressful. So I thankfully I had a spare G7 in my backpack, and I slapped that on and continued with the race, and didn't have blood sugar readings for 30 minutes, but it all worked out. But that being said, that's why I'm wearing two right now. I'm going to let the G7 die off, and then we'll continue on with the G6. I happened to have a spare. Now, with the Freestyle Libre 3, the first thing that I noticed and was thrilled about is that the Freestyle Libre 3 measures your blood glucose levels and reports them every single minute. Now, the G6 and G7 do so every 5 minutes. So that's a pretty big increase in the amount of data that you can take in. For some people, that might be a con. You get more data, and maybe that's more overwhelming. But for me, I love it because you get a minute-by-minute update, which means whenever you check your blood sugars, if you've got your phone open for more than a minute, you can see if they're changing rapidly or not, right? See if it's going up or going down or keeping stable. So I love that. That was my favorite pro. Now, a big one as well was that it was smaller. Smaller even than the G7. So it was hardly noticeable, and I quite liked the design of it. Didn't seem to catch on anything. I appreciated that a lot. Now, no more scanning is on the pros column because the previous version of the Freestyle Libre, you did have to scan with your phone. So if you wanted to get your readings, you'd grab your phone and you have to tap, and that would give you your readings. With the Dexcom devices, you don't have to do that, but this isn't a Dexcom review, so we're gonna stop talking about that now. It was a 1 hour warm-up. My other devices, the ones that I just said I'm gonna stop talking about, are 2 hours, while the G6 is. The G7 is 26 or 30 minutes, so that's different, but the Freestyle Libre 3 is an hour warm-up, so that was nice. Shorter than the 2 hours I've been used to. It's eco-friendly. The packaging, the device, all that stuff is quite a bit smaller and more compact, so it's more, I guess, good for the environment, right? Less plastic use and all that. Now, it's got a 14-day use, sorta. I didn't get to fully experience that, so I can't speak to anything beyond 5 days, unfortunately. Now, it's got adjustable alerts. I did adjust the alerts in there, and I appreciated that I could change at what point it alerts me for lows and highs and fall rates and all that. But we'll get into the cons on what I did not like about that in just a second. Now, it is more affordable. The way I was able to get a Freestyle Libre 3 is you go on their website, there's actually a free trial, like a free sample. So I signed up for that one. That's how I got it. It's actually not covered under my insurance plan, so that's why I only had one. But they're significantly cheaper than other devices that I've used, so I appreciate that affordability option as well. Easy application. If you watched my application video where I did a quick start guide, I accidentally started it. It was really simple, and I quite appreciated that. The accuracy, as I mentioned, from the first reading, it was spot on. Like beautiful, exactly matched my glucometer. Well, technically my glucometer was off, but then it matched the Freestyle Libre 3. And since then, all 5 days when it was working, right? It was pretty spot on. And that was it. That's all the pros. So let's get into our cons. Now, one of them, the alerts that I just mentioned, this pissed me off enough to probably never get one again. That's not true. There are enough pros that I would consider it again if I didn't have another option. But with my current options, I don't think I would go to this device because of this one feature. We'll say two. The first one is that the alerts continue alerting until they are dismissed. With my current devices, it alerts once and then waits 5 minutes and then alerts again. This one, alert, 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 alert. It just keeps going until you tap the phone. You're like, stop. Goodness gracious, right? And then a minute later, alert, alert, alert. You're like, stop it, you know? It was very frustrating. And the tricky part and why I don't like it is I had my hands full with my toddler at the moment when an alert was going off. And I couldn't silence the phone, so it just kept going. And she's like, Daddy, what is that sound? Like, it's my blood sugars. I need to apparently go turn off the alarm or it's gonna go indefinitely. So that, come on guys, like let's do a chime or something that tells me something's up, but maybe don't make it so that I can't dismiss it. The only caveat is maybe that should be required if it's an urgent low, sure, because you would need to have attention brought to that. But I mean, it was for like signal loss or something. Like, come on, this is ridiculous. So that was frustrating. Another one that I really did not like is it's very difficult to, what did I say here? Limited data insights. So you can't zoom in on your CGM graph. It's a 12-hour view. When you cram 12 hours into a single screenshot on a mobile device, it's chaotic. It's really difficult to identify when you were stable, when you were dropping or rising. It's hard to pull apart that data to actually be usable, right? Especially at a glance on your phone. Whereas other CGM devices that I've used, you can go, 5 minute by minute segments and identify when it started dropping, how much it dropped, and get more detailed reports. As a data guy, with my clients, I'm essentially a blood sugar analyst, right? Like I break down what's going on with blood sugars and I help my clients to find actual solutions instead of just Band-Aid fixes. So to have data that's usable is very important to me. And I would say it's pretty consistent across the board for most people. If you're going to have information, it's best to have information that's readable and not overlapping. So the graph, I would like the option for it to be a 3-hour graph or a 1-hour graph, like we've seen other CGM companies do. That enables us to get a better look at what's going on, all right? So another one, this one didn't really affect me, but you can only use your smartphone. There is no receiver. So if you don't have a compatible smartphone, you can't use it. You have to get a different phone. That's a bit of a bummer. Lastly, the limited alarm customization. So there, in addition to the alarms not dismissing without you actually dismissing them, there's not a whole lot of customization with the sounds, the fall rates, the types, and I would like to see more customization options with that as well. But big picture, I would say it's a very handy device. It was very accurate. It works for all the stuff it needs to work for. I would say the only issue is user experience, where I was like, I don't like how the graphs are shown. I don't like that I have to dismiss these alerts and notifications. But CGM as a CGM, spot on. No complaints about that. It was extremely accurate. It was very consistent and very happy with the overall experience with it. yeah, really no qualms at that point. But I'd love to know, in your experience, for you, the viewer, what CGMs have you looked at? And what has your experience been? Let's use the comment as a kind of a mastermind effect. If everybody drops in a single sentence or two, like, I use this CGM, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, or I vote for this CGM, you know, whatever it is, let's use that as a conglomeration of all of our ideas and thoughts. That'd be cool. But if you're new here, again, my name is Matt Vanderbeck. I actually work directly with type 1 diabetics. So if you take insulin, that's my jam. And I help people get to 80%, 90%, and yes, sometimes 100% time and range, lower their A1C. But most importantly, it's about controlling the blood sugars so that they don't control you. Getting you to a place where your blood sugars are so well controlled that you get to live your life and not living your life to control your blood sugars, right? So that's the mix of what I do, is a mixture of happy and healthy, finding that balance and actually feeling relatively normal again, having that sense of freedom and flexibility. So if you're new, go to diabetesinaction.com. That'll bring you into our ecosystem, show you how blood sugar formulas can help you get off on the right foot, get moving towards more stability, more predictability with your blood sugars, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thanks for hanging around. We'll see you next time, and keep up the fight.